Hey everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Emmanuel, and if you struggle with porn or if you know someone who's struggling with porn, this is the right podcast for you because what we're going to be teaching you in this series is how to gain freedom from porn. Not how to stop watching it barely, no, how to have freedom where it's easy to no longer watch porn, and I'm so excited to share this with you. Now, what we're going to do in this first episode is I want you to understand who am I, who is my wife Becca, and who is Team Vulnerable, so that way you have a better understanding of who you are learning from. So without further ado, I just want you to hear my story first, then we'll hear Becca's, and then we'll hear the Team Vulnerable story. But I want you to understand that because I think that's important to understand who you are learning from. So let's go ahead, let's play that video. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to share my story of where I was and how I got to where I am today. And for me, my story starts a really long time ago. In fact, it's about first grade. I remember I was at that school, I was getting bullied all the time, and I was just doing terrible at school. I was actually held back in first grade, and my parents were seeing that I was just doing terrible, and they said, something's wrong with this kid. And so they took me to the doctors, and they ran all these tests on me. And when all the tests came back, it said, well, he's got dyslexia, he's got short-term memory, he's got ADD. This kid's got some problems. He's pretty much clinically what we call an idiot. And my parents said, okay, we got to do something. So I started taking every medication that was on the market, right? Not all at once, but different medications. And, if you've heard of it, I've probably tried it. And that really, really hurt my self-esteem as a child, saying, what's wrong with this kid? He's got all these problems, being held back. And that really was kind of where the problem started, right? That low self-esteem for me. But as a child, I lived a great life. I had friends and played basketball and had all these great things. But when I was 17, that's kind of when things really started going downhill. See, I was in high school. I got handed the iPhone. And that to a 17-year-old, my dad asked me, can I trust you with this phone? And I'm like, yeah, sure, you can. Give me the phone, quick. I started looking up porn right away. And at the time, it was very vanilla porn. It was nothing crazy, nothing wild, and I felt like I kind of had it in control. But after I graduated high school, that's when it started going downhill really bad. I was going to a community college, and my parents said, hey, if you're going to live in this house, you have to go to college, you got to get a job. So I got a job at, Jamba Juice, and I was living in my parents' basement, and I was really, really at a low point in my life. In fact, at one point, I was flunking out of school, and I had a couple of, girls that I kind of had a relationship with, and, when things would get hot and heavy, I couldn't get going. And it was incredibly embarrassing. And about 18, 19 years old, I was already experiencing severe ED. And it was a real problem. And it was incredibly embarrassing, and that was an incredibly hard thing on the self-esteem. And I remember at my lowest point, I was flunking out of school, I was going home, I was driving, I pull into a parking lot, and I look up, I see this tall building in front of me, and I'm considering jumping. And that was a really, really tough time. Now, luckily, I was able to turn a lot of things around in my life, on the financial side, on business side, and in my relationship, I was able to meet the absolute most incredible woman I've ever met, Becca. However, my problems didn't stop when I met her, or I started making a lot of money. See, when Becca and I got married on our wedding night, I couldn't get it up. The night before, I looked at porn. And the day before that, I looked at porn. The day before that, I looked at porn. And by the way, I know I talked about how it was vanilla back then. It wasn't vanilla anymore. It was getting pretty extreme. And although it wasn't illegal, I think a lot of people could make a case it probably should be illegal, what I was watching. Now, I remember telling her that I had a porn addiction after I couldn't have sex on our wedding night. She took that news as best as she could, but those next few years were extremely tough. And that was a really, really hard time for us. I was having mood swings, paranoia, anger issues, all of the above. And I was a nightmare to live with. And it all came to a head during COVID when, I was having a bottle and a half of wine a night, a couple of weed gummies, and I was going to jerk off. And then, there was this one night where Becca says, hey, I want to have sex. I'm like, oh, I don't get to jerk off. That's how screwed up my mind was. I said, fine. So go to the bedroom, we start kissing and trying to get things going, and it's not working. I'm trying to get things going, it's not working. It's trying to get going with it, and I eventually just get so upset with myself, but I yell at Becca. And I said, Becca, you're the problem. You're the reason why I can't get going. You're this, you're that, you're that. And I'm just screaming, and she's crying. And it was one of the lowest points of my life. And I remember storming out of the room. I sat down and I said, Manny, you got two choices. You can keep going down this road, which is going to lead to death, or you can have a moment of vulnerability that could change everything, and tell her that you need help. So I walked back in that room and I said, Becca, I have a serious problem and I need help. I can't stop this on my own. I need help. And in that moment of vulnerability, I was able to start turning things around. See, Becca, who I thought was going to scream at me and yell at me and this and that, she said, Manny, I'm here for you. I love you. What can I do? And we started working on making progress. See, when we started, we didn't do all the things right. In fact, we did a bunch of things wrong. And I'm so glad that you don't have to experience the mistakes that we made. But I'm telling you what, you've done the hardest part. That moment of vulnerability, that moment of strength. Now all you got to do is you got to keep moving forward. And I'm so excited for you to have that joy, that intimacy, that happiness, that connection that Becca and I have. And I know that potential inside of you can go out there and change this world for the better. Glad you're here. All right, so you heard my story, and now I want you to hear Becca's story. Now, this one is powerful, it's moving, and there's a lot of amazing stuff in here. So tune in, make sure that you're following along. Go ahead, let's play that.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to come on and share really my story and my perspective going through this whole process of helping my spouse overcome a porn addiction. For me, growing up, I wasn't exposed to pornography at a very young age, but when I started getting into high school and college, I had a number of different boyfriends or guys that I was dating, and a couple of them actually confided in me and told me, hey, I have a porn addiction, and one of them even said to me like, hey, I know that a lot of marriages end because of this. And at the time I was very understanding. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so difficult. I'm so sorry that you're struggling with that, but like, I'm here for you. I had no idea what that entailed, and I can't say at that point in my life, I was 14 years old, I wasn't helpful for him in overcoming that problem, but it was kind of my first exposure to this issue and being with someone who was struggling with it. And then in college, a number of the people that I dated or was seeing, I know that they watch pornography, a few of them, because I found it on their computers. And one particular guy that I was dating, I remember seeing it on his computer. I had been looking for something else, I don't remember, came across it, and that was the first time that I got the idea, hey, well, it really feels like everybody is doing this and everybody kind of struggles with this, so why not just look something up? Curiosity got the best of me, I'll say. And at that point, I started to watch pornography myself. Now, I never was watching a crazy amount or all the time, but it was kind of like, hey, if I'm not dating anyone seriously and I'm just kind of bored, I would watch pornography. And I never felt right about it. I always kind of compartmentalized it and everything like that. And really, I stopped watching once I met Manny and we started dating. I was like, hey, I don't really need this anymore. That was just a little blip in my life, and I'm over it. I don't need it because we're in a serious relationship. So I kind of naively thought, hey, well, since I just gave it up really easily, he probably did too. So a lot of assumptions were made on my part of, hey, I know everybody kind of struggles with this, but we're in a serious relationship and now we're moving towards getting engaged and married. And so I think he's probably doing the same thing I am. Well, when it came down to our wedding night, we weren't able to have sex. Manny was, like he just shared in his story, not able to get things going. And, I remember feeling very, very sad and very confused, and just really, I did feel very disappointed because, your wedding night, it's like something I had imagined since I was like a little kid of just, that will be so special, and I can't wait. And the next day we were able to talk things through, and he confided in me, hey, I have this really serious problem with porn. And, from all my experience, having watched it myself, having dated people who I knew also struggled, logically, I was so understanding. I get it. I totally understand. I get why that is an issue for you, and it becomes habit, and you started when you were young, all of these things. Logically, I could completely understand where he was coming from, and I had nothing but like empathy for him. But the thing that reared its ugly head was just insecurity that I was feeling, of just like, wow, I feel not good enough, and I also just felt like I don't know really what to do, because I've encountered this with other people, but I've never really tried to help them through it. And so I would say my biggest mistake and regret in this whole process was when we were first married, I was not really open to him being very vulnerable with me. He came to me a couple times, when we were early married, and sharing about how he was struggling, and I just wasn't ready. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do to help him, and I was like, I got over it. Like, I don't understand why you can't just stop. I did not understand how deep the issue was, and I honestly, at that time, it felt more important for me that I just thought like outwardly and everything, our relationship is good, and this is messing with my plan. This is messing with my plan, and I don't like it. And so we kind of just swept it under the rug, really, for those first few years of being married. And it had so many ramifications of us not dealing with it early on. I know Manny shared some of this with you, but just the mood swings, the struggles, and our sex life too was just, I didn't want to bring it up. I was just hoping that it would go away. But in the back of my mind, I was always kind of wondering, like, am I being compared to a porn star right now? Would you rather be watching porn versus having sex with me? And because every time we were going to have sex, I felt like it was this performance on my part, and I felt like I need to perform, and it was so much pressure that I put on myself over those years that I really couldn't relax and just enjoy and be myself and be fully present. So it was not the most amazing sex life that we had those first few years, and it was all because, hey, I kind of shut that door to vulnerability and healing early on. And I'm not saying at all like, oh, I'm fully to blame, but it's just that as a partnership, we could have addressed this much earlier on, and we didn't. But COVID came around, and Manny opened the door again and said, hey, Becca, really, this is such a serious problem, and I need your help. And at that time, I was like, okay, I'm not going to mess this up. I want to be there for you. And, I tried my absolute best in every interaction with him during that time to be understanding. And I was grateful. I was excited that we were going to really do something to fix this issue together. But I also felt so sad. And it was just hard to let go of the thoughts of like these number of years where it just was like, you've been thinking about all these other people besides me, and that's been more important than prioritizing our relationship. And again, it was like, logically, I get it, I understand, but emotionally, I just felt so hurt and so betrayed. And so I just remember one night I was crying on the bathroom floor because I didn't want to show any emotion to Manny, because I was like, I want to be there for you. I want to support you in getting better. But I just broke down in the bathroom and I was crying. And I remember looking up, just Googling like what to do when your husband has a porn addiction. Where do you turn? And everything that I was finding was so negative. It was like, your husband's a dog, he's terrible, you should leave him. You know, there's a 3,000% chance that, or higher chance that he's cheating on you. And basically your marriage is over. It's done. You're probably going to get a divorce. That was all I was finding. Or there was religious resources where it was just like saying basically, oh, just a lot of shame surrounding the whole situation. And I was just like, that doesn't sit well with me. I don't believe that this is something to shame people about. This is an epidemic, and I know how hard it is to get off of this drug. So during that, I just felt so alone. I felt so alone, and I remember thinking in that time, I don't want other people to feel this way. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, and I didn't know the timeline, but I was like, it is on my heart to help people have a better experience going through this than what we are having right now. I really struggled those first few months, especially while we were implementing Covenant Eyes and putting the blockers on the phone and doing all of those things, and Manny confiding in me when there was mess ups. I really felt like I didn't find anyone else to confide in, and I felt like I'm all alone in this. I can't share, and I felt like I can't share my feelings with Manny. I feel like I just need to suck it up and be quiet, because when I shared those feelings a couple of times, it caused him to shut down and be like, well, now I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to share anything if you're not going to, be okay with it. And so, we didn't know what we were doing. We were walking blind through this whole thing. And so I'm so excited for you to be able to go through and really truly learn from all of our mistakes in this time, what we did that was right, what we did that could have been better, because this is it can be such an emotional and tumultuous time in your relationship. But, after we implemented those things, and then a lot of it got better, there was still some things that we had left out, and a lot of that was the emotional side of things, addressing things in Manny's past, like he discussed with the self-esteem issues. And there's so many different exercises that once he started reading these books and doing those things as well, it really brought about that 100% change and that commitment to really living a porn-free life and feeling that freedom versus the chains that I know he felt for years. So I've always had a passion for married couples. Even before we were married, my degree was in family and human development, and then I actually went on to do Tony Robbins' life coaching program before I ultimately decided to help Manny with real estate. And then I was the operations director at our family company for a number of years. But the opportunity just came up where we were both like, hey, this is on our hearts. We really, really want to help other married couples realize that, hey, you can turn this around. You can still have an amazing marriage, and you can grow stronger and closer together after dealing with this. Shame is not the answer. Your husband's not a dog just because he's been watching this. This is a global issue. This is huge, and we want you to fight this problem with us. So I'm so excited for you to go through the course, and I'll pop on in little pieces here and there. It's mainly going to be Manny doing the bulk of the teaching and the presenting, but I just want you to know, for all the ladies there who are watching, you're not alone. This can get better. I understand that there's a million things you could be feeling right now. I definitely felt a wide range of emotions, but it does get better, and we just want to be there for you. So thank you.
That, I don't care how many times I see that video. It always hits me hard emotionally. It's incredibly powerful, her story showing what love can do, how it's so much stronger than hate. And I'm so grateful for Becca for standing up to this and for loving me and being there for me throughout this journey. So what I want to do next is I want to share with you the Team Vulnerable story. You heard my story, you heard Becca's story, but I want you to hear how we got started with Team Vulnerable, helping other people. So let's go ahead. Let's play that video. In this video, I want to share with you how I was able to overcome a 15-year porn addiction. And I want to share this because I want to let you know that there is hope. There is freedom out there, and you can overcome this. No matter what lies get told to you or what the devil whispers in your ear, you absolutely can make a difference by standing up to this evil power. And what are these lies that I'm talking about? How about this? It only affects you. It's not hurting anybody else. And you can quit anytime that you want. You can just do it one more time and then you can be done. For 15 years, I bought into these lies. And for 15 years, I was broken, I was depressed, and I was empty inside. For me and my story, I was given everything the world had to offer. I was given money. I was given some fame. I was able to go on fancy vacations. And I had all the drugs and alcohol and porn that I could ever want. However, no matter how many of these things I had, I was always left broken, depressed, and empty inside. And there was always something that was calling on my spirit that said, you were meant to live a life that was so much more than this. However, I kept buying into those lies, and I kept going down that path of destruction. That was until my father died suddenly. All of a sudden, I was put into the CEO role of a $10 million a year company. I was given even more fame and more money and more prestige, and still, no one knew about my secret life of watching porn compulsively. When I was at my dad's funeral, I remember speaking about how he was such an amazing man, how he impacted so many people's lives, how he inspired so many people, and I knew that my father lived out his life's purpose. However, I couldn't say the same for mine. I knew this wasn't the path that God had laid out for me, and I could feel something in my spirit tell me to walk away from everything and to follow God and the plan He had for me. However, I didn't do that. I bought back into the lies that I was just talking to myself, and that I couldn't make a difference, and that I would have to be crazy to walk away from the life that I was just given. So after the funeral, I took the job, I took the money, and I kept my secret life. However, God kept putting that calling on my heart, and He told me to walk away from everything that I had been given. However, He didn't tell me what He wanted me to do. He just told me to walk away. And I would ask Him, show me what you want me to do. But He just said, walk away and have faith in me. I knew in my spirit this was something that I had to do, and that this calling was not going to leave my spirit and my heart. A few days later, we let the company know that we were going to be walking away. When they asked us why, we said because God told us to. And they were upset, they felt abandoned, and that was all understandable. And during this time, I questioned God. I said, God, why are you having us do this? What do you want us to do? But even though I felt those things, I knew in my heart that God was leading us to where He wanted us to go. For the next 2 weeks, we prayed to God. And we said, God, show us what you want us to do. Then about 2 weeks later, my wife and I are sitting at dinner. We look at each other and we go, we know exactly what God wants us to do with our lives. And almost at the exact same time, we say, God wants us to help individuals overcome porn addiction. Now, to give you some context of where we were at that moment, at that time, I was still addicted to jerking off and to drinking and smoking obsessively. When it came to porn, I had told my wife a few years ago that I had struggled with porn, and she had helped me stop watching hardcore porn, but my heart was not in the right place. I would still go jerk off, and I would still have fantasies, and I would still want to have that old life. I also knew nothing about helping people overcome addictions. Now, even though God put that on our hearts, I wasn't magically healed overnight. In fact, for the next few months, I fought the idea. I had just given up a job that was paying me $500,000 plus per year to go out and go teach on how to overcome porn addiction. I remember a few months after God put this on our heart, I was at a conference and I was in my hotel room, and I broke down and I cried. I cried and I cried and I cried because I knew that God was saying, it's time to give this up. and it's time to follow me. And during that time, I pleaded to God, God, you have the wrong person. I'm not the right person to fight this battle for you. I am struggling with this so badly. How am I supposed to go out and teach others on how to overcome this? And in my head, I could hear the devil just whispering these lies into my ear. You don't need to do this. This doesn't affect anybody. And in my mind, I started to justify it. I said, I'm a pretty good person. I'm not out there killing people. I give to charity. In fact, I had given $10,000 to a charity that was helping to stop the sex trafficking trade overseas. I'm not the problem here. However, in my heart, I knew that this was the moment where I had to say, I'm never jerking off again, never looking at porn again. I'm done with that old life, and I'm following you, God, and what you want from me. That night, I prayed to the Lord. I prayed for strength, I prayed for understanding, and I prayed for forgiveness. And in that time, I felt the Lord urging me to listen to one song. And this song was Your Love Never Fails by the Newsboys. The lyrics go like this: nothing can separate, even if I run away. Your love never fails. I know I still make mistakes, but you have new mercies for me every day. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the ocean rages, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. And I listened to that song again and again and again and again. And I thank the Lord for loving me, forgiving me, and choosing me to fight this battle. The next day I prayed to God for direction. The Lord said to me, I want you to raise up an army to fight this evil power that has a grip on so many people around this world. When I heard this, I fell to my knees and I prayed to God for guidance. I prayed for the right direction in this time. When I did that, He led me to the right books. He led me to the right authorities, and He helped me to hear the words that I needed to hear during that time. Now, during this time, I prayed for my own deliverance over this problem. And using the information that I was starting to learn, I started to apply it to my old life. And when I did, something amazing started to happen. I started to finally overcome this problem that had had its grip on me for 15 years. Now, during this time, the devil started to whisper back into my ears that you don't actually have to stop watching porn. You can just tell your wife that you're not watching porn anymore and still watch it. And you don't have to teach people on how to do this. I can give you your old job back. But this time when I heard that, I knew that it was a lie. After that, I started to film myself as I was learning these things so that way I could show it to other people. And the devil came back in my ear again. No one's gonna wanna watch you and learn from you. It's a waste of your time. But I knew that I couldn't listen to those lies anymore. I would think back on the fact that 56% of divorces cite porn use as a reason for getting that divorce. I would think back on how the porn industry fuels the child sex trafficking trade. And I would think back on all the men, women, and children who were addicted to porn and wouldn't be freed if I didn't stand up to this problem. Now, as we started to tell our close friends about this new business, people got really quiet around us. People stopped calling us to hang out as much. People stopped asking what was going on in our lives. And it was a really hard time and it was really lonely. However, during this time, the Lord put some people in our lives who encouraged us. And they told us that they were inspired by our mission and that it was helping them. And we started to see the impact that was going on in their lives. Flash forward a few months and we launched our course. And it wasn't exactly received well. And we felt that this all might have been a huge mistake. However, we reminded ourselves that if this could help one man, one woman, one child, then this would all have been worth it. And slowly but surely, friends and family started to reach out to us privately, and they started to thank us for what we were doing. Now after that, we launched our YouTube channel. And when we started, we had no idea how to make videos, but we could feel God saying, put out your story and let me take care of the rest. And when we did, it was really cool because we started to see people liking our videos and commenting, and we're going, wow, this is amazing. We could see God working. But after that, we started to put out some more videos and we started to get some hateful messages. One day I put up a video of Becca's and someone writes in a comment, if you were a better wife and you actually did your job, he wouldn't have to go look at porn. Now this comment was incredibly hurtful. However, I felt God putting on my heart, I want you to fight, but I don't want you to fight with hate. I want you to fight with something much stronger than hate, love. And I prayed to God and asked Him, how should I respond? So when the Lord put the words on my heart, I started to write. And me and this gentleman went back and forth for a few hours. And in this conversation, I let this person know my story and what we had gone through and how this almost destroyed our marriage. But through love, we were able to overcome this problem. And now we are trying to spread that message forward. And as the conversation went on, could feel his heart changing. He thanked us for the new perspective that he had. Now, although this was a win, it still hurt incredibly badly. During this time, we considered quitting. Our videos were getting 10, 20, maybe 50 views, and we didn't feel like we were making any real difference. However, in this time, we felt the Lord saying, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just like you did when you left that old life behind. Just like you did when you were able to overcome that addiction. And just like you did when you started to tell others about what you were doing. He said, trust in me, not in what you see. Becca and I knew we had to keep going. So we did. And guess what? nothing really changed. We were making more videos. The videos weren't getting more views. That was until we got a call. We got a call from someone who reached out about a year ago. They said that they had started to feel this feeling in their heart where they knew they had to stop watching porn. And they said they'd been able to stop for longer than they'd ever been able to stop before. And they were calling us to thank us. When we heard that, we broke down in tears. After that, we kept making videos, and again, nothing was really taking off until we posted a video called How Do You Know If You're a Porn Addict? Now, when we made this video, we posted it and we were expecting the same thing to just keep happening, but this video was different. Instead of getting 2 to 3 views an hour, it was getting 200 to 300 views every minute. And that video got almost 5,000 views. The next morning we woke up and we noticed that our old videos that had 20 or 30 views now had 100 views. One had 500 and one was almost up to 1,000 views. We opened our messages and we noticed comments from people all over saying, thank you for what you're doing. But the biggest one of all was we saw that someone went through our webinar and someone had the courage to stand up to this problem, and they told their wife about this secret that they had going on. And in that moment, that evil power that porn had over that person faded away. We could start to see that just by speaking up, we were making a difference. You can make an impact so much greater than you could ever imagine. You could change the lives of countless people by standing up to this problem. We encourage you to join us in this movement. Follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, and like and share. Donate if you have the means. Go through our course or let us know what we can pray for you about. I know I brought up the Lord a lot in this video. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. However, if you're tired of being shackled down by this addiction and you're ready to break those chains and to stand up and fight and join this army and join this movement, then come join us at Team Vulnerable. All right, so you heard my story, you heard Becca's story, and you heard the Team Vulnerable story. Now you understand who we are, and now we're going to teach you how to overcome porn use and how to gain freedom from it. Not just how to overcome it, freedom. And I know that's what you want. So I'm so excited for you. And before you go, make sure that you press the follow button, you press the subscribe button, like button, comment on the show, whatever. Do all that stuff because that helps the algorithm get this message out to more and more people so we can help more marriages. We can prevent more bad stuff happening to women and children, and we can even save lives by standing up to this problem. So you know what to do. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And also, check out teamvulnerable.com because we have tons of great resources for you there. That's where a lot of your next steps are going to be right there. So go to teamvulnerable.com. You'll see that in the show descriptions. And without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's get into that next episode. See you there.